let us take a leisurely dip and slip into the three sexual streams of the Solar Plexus Center. These three very different kinds of libido and sexual drive that propel and push us to bond with the other in very distinct and different ways, which can cause a lot of conflict and misunderstanding when we have aspects of different streams within ourselves and when we're different from our partners, because each of them have different sensory associations, a different kind of love language. This takes love languages to a whole new and much more sophisticated level, and different values, different principles, different biological and psychological reasons for falling in love, or thinking we have at least. Different reasons for pursuing new experiences just for the excitement of it. We'll dive into each one using some famous examples of the sexiest celebrities of all time. And I'm thinking we'll probably do this in 3 different parts to make it easier to digest. And here, as an introduction, let's do an overview and also look at what is a stream of awareness or drive. So here's a human design body graph. And as you can see, we have 3 different awareness centers, 3 ways of processing and perceiving our experience of the world. First of all, there's the mind, which can look at life across all of time, the past, the present, the future. It doesn't have any limits. And then there's the body in the splenic center, which is very limited. Only in the moment can the splenic instincts and intuitions for survival function. The body only functions in the now. So that's the only truth there is for the spleen. The mind is never an inner authority. It can think about anything and it has no real inner truth. The solar plexus center here functions in a wave based on emotional chemistry. And here in this center is where the heart of human sexuality lies, because last time we looked at the sacral center, the buttons that turn it on, and this motor is what all of life has in common, particularly this channel, the 515 of rhythm. All biological life has rhythms and seasons when the sacral center is going to be fertile and available for reproduction. But we're one of the few species that can be sexually available outside of any kind of fertility cycle. And so our sexuality has actually very little to do with reproduction. I mean, in fact, that's the one thing that more often than not we're trying to avoid. And so the complexity of our sexuality and the different functions that it serves as a social glue, as a symbol of power, an inspiration for creating beautiful things through love or unrequited love, and the drive to explore everything that we can possibly do with our bodies, even if it doesn't have any kind of real purpose or function. And this is all represented in the solar plexus center, which is unique to us. Now, a stream is a part of a circuit. There are 3 circuits: the tribe, the individual, and the larger collective, when we think about ourselves as a social species. And some of us are pure freaky individuals. Some of us really know how to fit in and be cool like a normal person in the collective. And a stream is an aspect of the way that we process our experience, energy, information that passes through us within one of those circuits. A stream always starts in a pressure center, whether that's the head or the root. And here is the fuel for that process. So in the tribal stream of bonding out of a need for social support for the sake of the family unit, the fuel for it starts with flirtation, the drive to find somebody who will support you, or trying to flirt with somebody higher up than you on the social ladder who you feel will guarantee you some kind of material comfort. In the individual stream of romance and passion, it's the provocation, saying something out of the ordinary to see if the other person is on the same wavelength as you, if they get your sense of humor, if they share your spirit, the things that you find beautiful or ugly, looking for that kind of communion. And in the stream for collective desire of new experiences, then we have the 41, this burning dream of a new experience, something different. And this is part of what's always driven us to see what's around the corner in the next valley. What's it like doing it on a plane or in a threesome upside down while you're bungee jumping, whatever. That's the bizarre human experiential way, the drive that has always kept us exploring new things, seeing what this tastes like, what would I want to do again, and what would I tell everybody to never repeat. And then that drive moves into an awareness center, here the solar plexus. And this is where the 49 accepts or rejects the flirtation of the 19. The 55 is provoked in the right way or not. Do they find the strangeness of the 39 beautiful and interesting and they want to find out more about that person and it's inspired them? Or do they find it repulsive, disgusting? The individual stream is about beauty or ugliness as something completely subjective. Does the fantasy of the 41 really ignite the desire in the 30 to actually try and fulfill that experience if it's humanly possible? And then that fuel, that drive of the root actually becomes a potential for something happening and manifesting in the world, but it's still not there yet. We have to move to these possibilities in the 37. Well, if the flirtation of the 19 has been accepted and approved by the culture, by the rules of the tribe as appropriate, then it can move to the 37, starting to define the bargain of that relationship, the marriage bond, implicit or explicit, what have you. Here in the tribe, there's always a material bargain of one person looking after the other person in exchange for affection or material. Love is very nice, but someone's got to pay for it. The tribe can't survive without money in the same way that the individual can just have love as a fantasy and not mind if they're living in a slum as long as it's with their soulmate. The whole world is beautiful. But the tribe is not like that because it's here to build the foundation of our society. And that depends on having the material resources to potentially raise children together. Whether that's the aim of your relationship or not, those principles are going to be something that are very important for you. In the 22 of Frida Kahlo here, then you have the ability to actually listen to the other. You're inspired them, you're provoked and stimulated to feel something with them. Nothing feels as strong as this stream of individuality, which is why there's so many eating disorders, addictions of all kind, especially in the 55. You know how love can turn your stomach upside down and make you not want to eat for days. And then what does the individual want to do when it feels that spirit of communion, that similar wavelength with somebody else? They want to listen to each other. The 22 is the left ear, the emotional ear. It doesn't necessarily hear what's actually being said like the right ear, which can, lead to problems in relationships. For example, I've got the 22, that's my kind of listening. I hear the mood of what's being said, the emotion behind it, and how much I actually take in also depends on what mood I might be in. And so my Julie tells me, didn't you hear what I said, that you to do this or that or the other? And I just heard how happy she was or how angry and upset she was. And then it takes me time, as everybody who's emotional knows, and I'm emotionally open, but I've got this emotional listening. So you're kind of play it back to yourself over the next couple of days, and then you understand what the other person was really saying. But in the moment, there's that sense of hearing the tone of their voice and whether you find it beautiful or ugly, happy or sad. And that gives you the possibility for social openness or closedness if you don't like the sound of their voice, the tone of their voice. For example, my son is in the 22, so I really do fall in love with people's voices. When I met Julie, she was part of a poetry program on an independent radio. So I was listening over and over to all the episodes of the show just to hear her voice and to try and know whether I liked it or not, whether I could be open or closed to a relationship. And I know how bizarre that would sound to somebody who's tribal or collective and don't care about that at all. In the collective, they just want to share a fun experience with somebody. They won't necessarily even remember their name. The 36 is the gate of fucking. And Frida Kahlo's got that as an adjective here. So that is part of her, but the real important thing for her is the sound of their voice, being able to feel like there's some kind of spiritual communion with the other person. And I say spiritual, not as in divine or anything like that. I just mean your spirit, how you feel in the world. Does it make you feel like the world is full of magic and beauty? Or does it bring you melancholy and sadness and darkness and everything is ugly? I mean, that's the ride that these people have in love. And of course, it makes them very creative as artists and musicians. And hopefully you can already see how confusing it can be for you if you have within you these tribal principles of bonding and committing to each other out of mutual support. And at the same time, you have this unconscious desire to just fuck and experience different things. And you've got this other side of you that just wants the romance, the love notes, the beauty, which you can't necessarily get in the other two streams. And this is Jonny Depp. And then finally, we have the manifestation of the fuel, the potential, the possibility of these streams. And for two of them, it's in the throat center, but for the tribal stream, it's in the heart, in the gate of the stomach. The way to a man's heart is through the stomach. So say the tribe. That may not be true for everybody else. And in the tribe, this manifests as the willpower, the promise of the ego to provide. If you give me the affection, if you feed me, if both of us fulfill our tribal roles within the arranged bargain of our relationship, then I will provide and support you. Now, obviously, this can be a man or a woman having any of these aspects at all. And when your nature conflicts that little bit with whatever the social mores, the morality and customs of the culture you live in, this knowledge can be especially useful for you in self-acceptance, in knowing, hey, there's nothing wrong with you just because you don't fit exactly into this whatever social norms. Here we have Miley Cyrus, another violently melancholic, creative individual. I mean, in the 55 here, there's also all the kind of bipolar, what we call disorders, but they're not really. They're just a very strong ability to feel beauty and darkness. And the strength of that, if it's not channeled in a creative way, that's really the key. If it's not accepted by the person as just part of who they are and they think there's something wrong with them and they need to manipulate their mood with push it down with all kinds of products in order to fit in collectively to the workplace or whatever, they're an individual. They don't fit in. Full stop. And that's why what usually appeals to them in that 55, what provokes their spirit in another person is something that's different, that's unusual, that's unique. And then they're open to listening. And then in the manifestation of the 12, actually speaking, communion, expressing their insides of their soul to each other over a candlelit dinner. And never even necessarily having sex, because they know that once they consummate that bond, well, maybe there'll be a match in the bedroom and maybe not. It's kind of a tricky moment of truth for individuals because they're so different and freaky. Will the other person like the way that they like to do it? Who knows? But as long as they feel this magic emotional connection with the other person through their voice, that's the really important thing in that relationship. Now, the tribe never have to speak. It's not about that. It's about supporting each other on the material level. So imagine if you've got a tribal partner who only touches and wordlessly shows affection through touch and material gifts, and you're an individual who just wants to hear their voice say all kinds of beautiful, sophisticated poetry and I love yous to you, then that's going to take understanding for that relationship to work. I think this is particularly useful for any kind of intimacy or relationship coach to understand that there is no comparison between unique individuals, and what's right for one person is not necessarily going to be even possible for the other person to adapt to, depending on their nature. We can be very fixed in certain ways and adaptable in other ways. There's some kinds of tantric exercises that, you're just never gonna vibe with or get if you're an individual. You want me to get in that position and do that? Well, I just want to do the missionary and look deeply into your eyes and hear the sound of your voice, says the individual. Whereas the human experiential way of collective desire never wants to do the same position twice, ever. And the 35 here in the manifestation, well, all it says is, I'm bored. It's time for a change. The 30 has recognized the fantasy of the 41, whatever kind of bizarre fetish that's never been done before that is. The 36 says, okay, let's do it. It's the gate of crisis because, hey, when you're doing something new that's never been done before, you never know. It could be extremely painful or it could be extremely exciting. But either way, this is about sharing an experience with somebody else and then sharing it with everybody else, writing about it, videoing it. We did it for 3 days straight in a satellite. And then what do you get at the end of that? You get the 35, the gate of fullness, of satiety. It says, okay, well, that was fun. Now let's do something different. I'm bored. It's time for a change. John Travolta here. Let's look for the next exciting thing. So that's what an awareness stream is in the context of human sexuality. And in the next parts, we'll dive deeper into each one of them, talk about their unique love languages, what to do if you've got one or your partner's got the other, or you've got a mix of all three. One person's pain is another person's pleasure. Peter Piper's pickled pleasure is Pretty Peter's prickly pain. Do you remember it's your body that's actually doing the shagging, not your mind? Your mind can imagine all sorts of things, but only your body knows what's right for you. So I hope to see you in the next one. Remember to subscribe and like and surrender if you found this exciting.